money removes this friction, okay? It gives everyone something widely accepted, so transaction becomes faster and simpler. So, for example, now there are all the digital currencies that they are trying to hit the market, but of course they lack this universal chance to act as a medium of exchange, because you cannot buy everything with them. The second aspect is that money works as a unit of account. So it means that gives us a common language for the value. So we can count everything and we can refer it to an amount. So we can compare the price of a coffee or a laptop or a house or a taxi ride using the same standard. Without this, it would be difficult to know whether searching is cheap or expensive, profitable or wasteful. So a student comparing, for example, university books or rent and transport costs is already using money in this way, so even without thinking about it. So the third aspect, which is also very important, serves as a store of value. So this means it allows us to move purchasing power from today into the future. Of course, you might question if there is inflation, of course, but we will think and talk about this later. If I earn money today and I do not spend it immediately, it can keep part of it for next week, next month, or next year. This is what makes saving possible. So there is, however, an important limit. As we say, money stores the value only if it keeps enough purchasing power over time. So as I was anticipating, inflation reduces what the same amount of money can buy. But also, storing money is not exactly the same as preserving the wealth perfectly. So that's why we'll see how important will be to make investments. So cash bank balances and digital money all perform these roles because people trust the system behind them. And shops accept them, banks record them, and the public believes others will also accept them tomorrow. So if a currency is not trusted, it will be worthless. If trust disappears, money stops working well. So the real foundation is not the paper or an app, is the collective acceptance. Okay, so this is the key of the money. So in a simple way to remember this, so money helps us exchange, measure, and save. So these are the three functions. So once people understand these three functions, of course, many personal finance ideas start to make more sense. And we can move to the next slide here. So we talk about the income here. So in accounting and finance, every word doesn't have a specific synonym. So every word carries with a specific meaning. And every meaning cannot be used as a synonym. So when we talk about income or salary or something else, we have specific differences. So now we talk about the income, which is not all the same, and treating every euro, pound, or dirham as if it comes from the same source often leads to poor decisions. We need to know from where money is. Hello? Okay. So the first category, there is someone which is making noise. So the first category is earned income. Okay, so this is the most familiar one. So,
Yung original, ano ba yung original?
I don't know, maybe there is someone which is...
Excuse me, Alessio, 1 second. Kindly, everyone, mute yourself, please.
Yes.
We don't want to interrupt the session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, the first category is the earned income, the active work that, however, okay, although is the most common, is taking out of you a lot of time. So you're spending more time working rather than doing anything else. So this is the most familiar one. It comes from this active work. So it leads to salary, hourly wages, commissions or bonuses, consulting fees, all belong here. But as I was saying, these are carrying a lot of burden because as long as you stop working, you will not earn anymore. So in simple terms, if you stop working, this income usually stops as well. And for most students and many employees, this is the starting point of financial life anyway, for anyone. So a part-time job in retail, private tutoring, or office work all fit here. So the second category is the passive income. So this is income which does not depend on constant daily effort after the initial setup. So people often misunderstand this and think it means free money. Okay, it does not. Okay, it's not free money. It's an income which is set up before. So usually there is a work at the beginning, capital invested, or a combination of them. So rent from a property, dividends from shares, interest for saving, royalties from a book. So these are common examples in general. So a simple real life case, someone who writes an online course once and it keeps earning from it later. So the effort is front loaded, not absent at all. It's a minimum effort, but there is still effort. So the third category is irregular income. So this income which arrives unevenly and the amount changes, the timing changes, or both. So freelancers know this as well, so very well. So 1 month might be strong, the next month might be weak. So seasonal work or the so-called gig economy platforms, one-off projects or contract work or side jobs often fall into this group. So this type of income is not necessarily worse, but it demands more discipline because planning becomes harder. Okay, so an important practical point sits underneath all these three types. So it becomes something that is related to your specific mindset. So if you want stable income, but of course, cannot expect some spikes that can change your life. Or if you want to risk a little bit more, so you might rely on irregular income, but potentially unlimited. So you need awareness and management. So with earned income, people must read their payslip properly. Gross pay is not the same as the take-home pay. So here, hopefully, we don't have personal income taxes, so it's the same. But in many other currencies and in many other countries, there is a much difference. So you might earn 50% out of what is your gross income. So many people focus on the big number and forget the deduction, of course, the taxes, the pension contribution, or the withholding. So the number which matters for the daily life is the amount which truly lands in your account. The side income also needs attention because it often begins of something small, such as selling online or freelance design work or tutoring on weekends. So over time, it might become passive, irregular, or a mix of both. So this matters for budgeting, and in many countries, it also matters for tax reporting as well. A useful mindset is then that earned income pays for today, the passive income helps build for tomorrow. Irregular income requires a stronger buffer and tighter planning and can truly change your life. So let's move back again to gross versus net income, because this might not be entirely relevant here in the UAE. It might apply in many other currencies, in many other countries. So gross income is the full amount you earn before anything is taken away. It is the headline number. So it looks bigger, and for many people, it feels more satisfying, though it's not the amount that they are free to spend. So if someone pays my monthly salary is 5,000, they're often speaking about the gross income unless they specify otherwise. So there is no difference here in the UAE between gross and net. However, in many other countries, there is. So between gross and net, there is a filter. This filter includes taxes, social contribution, pension deductions, insurance, loan repayments, or other charges, depending on the countries and the person's situation. The net income is what remains after the deduction. So this is the amount which shapes everyday financial decisions, so they can allow us to pay the rent, the groceries, or any other expense or bills that you have. So I will move to the next concept, which applies more in the UAE. So this is extremely important. As you see, consuming or spending is not the same. Okay, so consumption and expense, you see, they have different meaning. Okay, so a common mistake in personal finance starts here because people know roughly how much they earn, though they do not know where it goes. Okay, but when the money feels tight at the end of the month, the problem is not the income alone. The problem is the poor visibility. So there are two broad things people spend money on. Okay, the first is the goods. Okay, so meaning physical items you buy and own, such as the food, the clothes, the laptop, the furniture. So the second is the services, meaning things that you, for example, you do something like transport, haircut, healthcare, or subscriptions or streaming platforms. Both matter, okay, because though they have behaving differently. So a one-off purchase is easy to notice, of course, but a service paid automatically or recurringly every month often hides in the background. So daily tracking gives just the micro view. I created for you an extension for Chrome that I will share with you later. So I will show you how we can manage these things. It's a practical thing that I developed yesterday for the UAE based, okay? So this is where small spending becomes visible. So the coffee, the delivery apps, the taxis, the snacks, online purchases. So I will recommend you to pay eventually everything through the card, so you can track at the end of the month and you can try to make an analysis of how you are spending. So monthly tracking gives the macro view. So we stop looking at the single transaction one by one and we start looking at patterns. How much goes to the rent, how much in percentage goes to the transport, to the leisures, and so forth. So the consistent tracking produces 4 practical benefits. The first one is the awareness. So you see where money goes instead of relying on memory, which is not always reliable. So the second one is the control, because you are less likely to cross limits when you notice. And the third is the saving, because waste become easier to spot. So you are becoming frustrated if you see recurring expenses that you do not value as much as you should. Okay, so the fourth is the goals, because it becomes easier to move money towards something deliberate, such as an emergency fund or a holiday or tuition fees. A useful real-time example is that many students believe that their biggest problem is low income. So sometimes it's true, but in many cases, the bigger issue is the leakage. Small repeated spending, subscriptions ignored, or unplanned convenience purchase quietly drain the money. Once tracked properly, of course, the financial picture often changes immediately. So the key idea is that what gets tracked gets understood, and you know, what gets understood becomes easier to manage. Okay, so let me see here. So needs and wants. Okay, so before moving to this, I wanted to share with you one simple tip that I have usually when I'm about to make some purchases. Okay, so sometimes we want to check, we want to buy something that we are not truly convinced. So the important thing is to, for example, before making the payment at the cash out, you might try to, you might try to see and to think, will I truly enjoy this thing after making the purchase? And this might be extremely useful, especially when you are about to make some purchases that you are not truly convinced of. And this is something that works also with others that I shared this tip with, so it was quite interesting. Then, one of the biggest reasons people lose control of money is very simple. They do not separate, actually, needs from wants with enough honesty, okay? So we have impulsive purchase needs that we want to buy because we truly like that thing, and then we realize that we use only once. A need is something linked to basic living and stability. So housing, food, basic healthcare, essential transport, suitable clothing. So without this, the daily life starts to break down. So this comes first because they protect, of course, the functioning, the health, or the continuity. If rent is unpaid or food is not covered, financial planning, of course, is meaningless. A want is different. A want improves comfort, enjoyment, or status, but the life continues without it. Of course, we might have a poor life, okay, so we might not be extremely happy. A newer car or a dining out or entertainment subscriptions, luxury goods, holiday or premium gadgets. None of these are wrong on their own, of course. But the problem starts when wants quietly disguise themselves as needs. So when we perceive that they are needed anyway, so we can do without them. Of course, as Warren Buffett is saying, there are always two ways to make our management of the money efficient. We might reduce the expenses or increase the income. Of course, in my case, I always try to increase the income instead of cutting the expenses. So, but this is a choice. Sometimes you can do both, and you can increase the value of your savings and investments. If you squeeze the equation, so you increase the expenses and you reduce the income, of course, there is no space, not even for the basics. So the discipline on spending matters a lot. So good money management is really about extreme sacrifice. So it's about the order in this case, because first we need to plan, then we need to track, then we need to save and to invest. I don't always recommend saving by themselves. I recommend investments because the investments are meant to be productive. The savings are only there, and they might not be even protected by the purchasing power erosion. So a useful real life example again is the food. So groceries are usually a need. So daily takeaway coffees and repeated food delivery often sit closer to wants rather than needs. The transport to the university or work is a need. Upgrading to a far more expensive car for image is usually a want. A laptop for study may be necessary. Replacing it too early for style or brand prestige moves into a different category. But this applies to many other things like the mobile phones, the last model of the phone, and so forth. So many financial problems do not begin with low income alone. They begin when wants keep entering the budget before needs are fully secured and before savings are built. People feel the pressure, so not because they buy one expensive thing once, but because they normalize too many comfort purchases at the same time. Financial freedom starts with consistent discipline. So cover what is necessary. Be deliberate with what is desirable. So when people master this distinction, of course, they stop spending emotionally and they start spending strategically. And this is another important thing to focus on. That might look obvious, but it's not at all. So the difference between fixed and variable cost. Okay, so a useful way to improve money management is to split expenses into these two groups. Fixed costs are the easiest part to predict. Okay, so they tend to be stable from month to month: rent, insurance, loans payments, or many subscriptions that they fall into this category. Then they can be classified as need or wants. Okay, so in the as a subset. So these costs matter because they reduce the flexibility. So once they are too high, financial pressure starts early in the month before any other spending even begins. Okay, so you are forced to increase your income somehow. So variable costs move with behavior. So groceries, utilities, transport, eating out, and entertainment often change according to the choices, to the habits, and also to the season sometimes. So this is where the people lose control because the amount feels very small and in normal daily life. So, but the monthly total tells a different story. Might be even much higher than the fixed cost. So the real challenge is to balance these two sides. in general, because fixed costs shape the structure of the budget, variable costs shape the outcome. Okay, so sometimes someone may have a reasonable salary, but its fixed costs are heavy and the variable spending is left unchecked. So there will still be little room for saving. Okay, so let's make an example once again. So imagine two people with the same monthly income. Okay, one has a modest rent and cook at home most days. So the other has a high rent, several subscription, frequent food delivery, and regular weekend spending. Okay, so their income is the same, but their financial stability is not. So the difference comes from cost structure and behavior, not from the salary itself. So good expense control starts with planning then. The key point is that the fixed costs need careful commitment. So we need to make sure that is balanced at least by a stable income. Variable costs need active monitoring. When both are managed properly, of course, we can have a wise decision. The savings, okay? Savings is treated in a very dodgy way in finance because it's not considered so good. It's not considered good even by the government because the savings are not turned into the GDP. So it might look strange, but you know, the GDP is formed by consumption, investment, and government spending. So the savings are not included in the GDP. So the government itself doesn't want people just to save, but they want to invest. What's the difference between saving and investment? Savings are often misunderstood. Many people think that saving starts only when the income becomes high. In reality, saving starts when a person decides to create stability before a problem appears. There are two main reasons to save, but also you need to invest that saving later. Okay, so the first reason to save is for expected needs. Okay, so these are costs we know they are likely to arrive, even if not today. So if there is a breakdown or a major repair of the car, we cannot say this is unexpected. Okay, it should be planned. Okay, annual insurance, tuition fees, holidays, replacing an appliance. So we cannot just deal with the cash we have on hand because it should be programmed. So the second reason is for unexpected events. Is there when emergency funds become essential, so job loss, medical cost, urgent repairs, and so forth. So a useful distinction is that short-term savings prepare you for the things you expect. So you should have some liquidity, not invested, or you might disinvest easily. An emergency fund protects you from things that you do not expect, okay? So about a simple example. Okay, so a person knows their car will need maintenance within the year. So, and they also know that the rent and groceries must continue even if their salary is delayed. So if they save for the repair only, they still remain exposed. If they have emergencies only, for savings for emergency only, they may still feel pressure from predictable cost. As we say, it's predictable, it's not unpredictable. If you have a car, you know you might have a breakdown, you might need to go to the mechanic. The wider point then is the resilience. So saving give breathing space. So they give time to think, time to respond, and time to avoid desperate decisions. Or even worse, going into useless debt without any hope to get out of it. Okay, so, but I'm not saying the debt is wrong, because if it's invested in things that they are producing more income than the interest expenses, it's a very, very good idea. It's called leverage in that case. So the most practical message is that start early, keep doing it as much as you can, anytime you can, by squeezing the expenses and increasing your potential income, as I told you, and then you will be extremely safe. The purpose of saving, then we can summarize them here. So we have first, liquidity. So liquidity means access. In case of urgency, you can have it. You can also have some investment that they can be liquidated easily. So part of your saving must be easy to reach in the normal life if something unexpected or expected comes. Capacity, if you choose, of course, the right topic, okay? So a business loan may help expand operation, raise the revenue, or finance productive assets. Other debt does the opposite, okay? It funds consumption without creating lasting value. So you need to repay that debt with your own additional income generated by something else, so wasting your potential instead of saving or investing again. So borrowing heavily for luxury items or taking expensive short-term loans which solve one individual problem and create a larger one later. So the use of the credit card is terrible for this. Okay, because credit card, especially here in this country, I noticed that the banks are trying to push everyone to get credit card loans instead of a proper loan, because they earn much more money from the credit card. This is happening everywhere. But if you apply for a loan, they ask you a lot of documents. If you apply for a credit card, they will ask you minimal documents, eventually just the salary certificate or nothing else. So this is quite distortion for the market because it's encouraging the use of bad debt rather than for productive investments. So a useful example is the car, for example, the car loan. A modest car loan for necessity vehicle must be understandable in some cases, but borrowing heavily for an expensive new car which loses value rapidly is a different decision, is a very bad decision. The monthly payment may look manageable at first, but the asset is depreciating, so you don't have anything left, okay, to repay the debt. So you ended up in paying that credit card or that car loan with your own sacrifices. So a smart test is this. So will borrowing help produce the future value, a stronger income, or durable assets? So or the founding consumption is I cannot truly afford. Okay, so this is the question we need to ask every time we think about getting a loan. So I want to leave you with a simple message here. Debt should support your future, not quietly damage it. Okay, so good borrowing is deliberate, measured, and tied to value creation. So bad borrowing usually feels easy at the start and painful later. Understanding the interest. Okay, interest, we know even in Islamic finance is considered riba, is not allowed, but there is always a kind of profit even in Islamic finance, so is a kind of similar mechanism anyway. So I'm not saying it's the same, but the form in which is charged is different. So the starting point is the principle. Okay, so there is when there is someone in need for financing, you might end up in paying a little bit of cost up of it. So the principle is the amount that is borrowed. Okay, so interest is then added as the price for borrowing it over time. Okay, so the more time you keep that principle, the more you end up in paying, of course. If someone borrows 10,000, they do not return only 10,000. They return the principal plus the interest charge on it. And the interest is not only the charge for the inflation, okay, which is quite straightforward, but is related for the risk of the lender for lending you that money, because the more time you wait to repay, the more that cost opportunity of that capital invested with you, it cannot be used for some other purposes by the lender. Okay, so the more time, the more the lender is exposed to other risks. You might disappear, you might have an accident, you might have something else. So you might lose your job. So the more the time, the higher the time, the higher the risk for the lender. So it's related to the risk. It's not just money which is producing money. It's the repayment for the compensation for the risk faced. And the longer the time, the higher the risk. Credit cards work differently. They often look flexible and convenient, but they can become expensive quickly. So if the balance is not paid in full, interest is charged on what remains. Okay, so because the rates are often very high and the cost grows very fast. Minimum payments create a false sense of safety because they reduce the balance slowly while interest keeps building. So if you see every time you have a credit card, they might say, oh, you know, this is the full amount to be paid, but you know, you can pay just the minimum, which is eventually 1/10 of the amount. So if you pay, if it's tempting because you might keep using that card as a credit facility, but you are just paying a lot of interest, like 10% monthly, okay, which is crazy. Okay, so another important point is the compounding. So interest can be charged not only on the original amount, but also on the earlier interest that not yet paid. Okay, so once this starts, debt becomes heavier faster than many people can expect. So this is why small unpaid balances can churn up into persistent financial pressure. They cannot get out. So the practical lessons is straightforward then. So before borrowing, look beyond the monthly payment. Ask what is the total repayment will be. Even when you want to repay a loan, for example, or a mortgage, so the banks are usually suggesting you, oh, you know, let's just keep the same length of the period for the repayment. Let's keep the same maturity, but you will reduce the payment monthly. Nothing bad, nothing worse than it, because you will keep paying a lot of interest because you will not reduce the time, you will just reduce the payment. But it's better to keep the installment the same and reduce the length of the borrowing if you have some cash to use to reduce that debt. So the real issue is not the borrowing alone here, but is to understand the true cost of borrowing before saying yes. As I was telling you before, the best exercise I do before buying something is saying, I want to try to envision myself after leaving the checkout and checking and imagining myself if I'm truly happy or not after spending that money. Okay, so I was reading the messages, but there is nothing related to the course itself. So let's move here to this other aspect, the compounding interest. Okay, so it works in both directions. It can build wealth and it can also deepen the wealth. So on the positive side, compounding means you earn returns not only on the original amount, but also on earlier returns. So money starts generating growth on top of the growth. At first, the effect looks modest. Later, it becomes much stronger. So this is why starting earlier matters so much. So time gives compounding the room it needs. Okay, a simple example is the young person who starts saving small amounts every month. So the contribution might not look impressive, of course, at the beginning, but after many years, the accumulated growth becomes far larger than most people expect. The key reason is not magic, is the repetition plus time. So the time is, in this case, having a good effect. Now look at the negative side. So that can compound too. If interest is added to unpaid balance and then new interest is charged on the larger amount, the burden grows faster and is unbearable. So credit cards are the clearest example. If someone carries a balance and pays only the minimum, the debt often lasts for longer than expected. So what looked as small purchase turns into a long and infinite expensive obligation. Okay, so compounding is not good or bad on its own. It depends on which side you choose, which ones you are using it for. It's like a knife, okay? You can use it to cut easily your food or to kill someone. I hope not. So let's go here to bank accounts and digital wallets. Okay, so a current account is mainly for daily movement of money. Salary comes in, bills goes out, the car payment happen, transfer happens. So it is built for access and convenience, not for the growth. So it is the operational center of personal finance, the one that you are using on a daily basis to make grocery purchase. A saving account has a different function because it's not mainly for spending, it's for separation and discipline. Okay, so once the money moves into saving, it becomes less tempting to use casually. So this is important because many people do not fail to save due to low income alone, but they fail because their money stays in the same place and they believe it's available every time. So digital wallets add another layer. So they make payments faster and move flexibly. They are useful for contactless spending, online purchases, splitting bills, and managing different cards through a phone. So a simple real-life example is that a student or a young professional may use a current account for salary and recurring payments, saving accounts and emergency funds, and so forth. Daily money flow, okay? So I will try to be a little bit more faster in these additional slides because I want to leave room for discussion at the end. I believe and I hope you will have a lot of questions, and I also want to show you the tool that I developed yesterday. So here, you know, the payments methods, they look like a technical detail, but they shape spending behavior more than many people think. Okay, so money usually starts from an income source. They move through different channels before reaching the daily expenses, so bills, savings, and investment. So the payment method is not neutral because each option usually affects convenience, control, cost, and risk in different ways. So the cash is the more direct. The card makes spending easier and faster. The bank transfer are another important method because they are commonly used for salaries, the rent, tuition, the bigger amounts. Mobile payments push the convenience even further because a phone becomes a payment tool and we always have it in our hand. It's fast, practical, and especially for the everyday urban life. Okay, but greater convenience often means that greater temptation to spend without reflection. So that's a single moment that I told you before spending. Think about how you will feel after spending. Okay, so that will be a powerful tool. So each method should match the purpose, of course, because convenience matters, security matters, cost matters, because of course, if you are making payment with the cards or things, you might have to pay interest later. And choosing the payment also is a deliberate choice that leads to wise or bad decisions. Let's move to budgeting, which is my favorite topic. So it's often misunderstood as restriction. So in practice, good budgeting creates control, control creates freedom. You might think that your colleagues are very savvy, they don't want to spend, in Italian, we say they are tirchio, okay? So they have short arms and so forth, but this is because of the use of the money, okay? So this step is planning allocation of income. So
excuse me, doctor.
It matters. Yes, please.
Just a quick note, please. If you get disconnected, kindly rejoin the same link for the last time, as this meeting will finish soon, like 12:15. Please.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, I almost finished with the slides. We will talk about something else now. Okay, so let me focus on the most important topic. So because I want to skip some of the slides and focus on the most important aspect. So I want to speak about inflation because it's quite important now because like never before, the central banks are printing money, they are reducing the interest rates, and even if they increase the interest rates, there is a lot of money in circulation. So the inflation is quite popular, and there is the risk that due to the war, there will be a stagflation like in the 70s. Okay, so inflation means that money loses purchasing power over time, and the amount stays the same in nominal terms, but you can buy much less. So if you buy one gold coin today, you can buy with the same coin, the same thing in 10 years. But if you keep in your pocket a banknote, you will buy eventually much less than you can buy in 10 years, okay? Because the money is being printed and it's being debased, it's called. Okay, in a simple way to see this is through everyday shopping. So years ago, the same amount of money bought more food, more services, and more housing value than it does today. So when prices rise across the economy, each unit of currency does less work for the person holding it. So that's why the compounding interest is also happening. Okay, so and that's why sometimes getting a mortgage with a fixed interest rate might be also good, because you will repay in 10 years time the same amount of the mortgage with the installment, which is fixed with a de-evaluated banknotes or money in general. So let's make inflation matters for saving then. So if money sits in a place where it earns little or nothing while prices keep rising, so you're not saving, you're wasting money. Okay, so saving is losing, sometimes someone is saying. Okay, so inflation quietly reduce the real value of the money then. It affects budgeting, savings, and investing in full. So one more thing, so before we move to the practical parts. So I want to just move to the last slide. Okay, so I will skip some, then I will share with you the slides. If you registered, I will share with you all the slides if you want to send me the email. Okay, so mastering and prioritization. So prioritization matters because resources are limited, time is limited, money is limited, and energy is limited. Okay, so the real problem is really choosing between something good and something bad. It depends on you. More often it's choosing between several things which all seem important. And even if we do a lot of research, we might feel surprised. So a useful way to manage this is to think in terms of urgency and impact. Okay, so something needs action now and also carry major consequences. These come first. Okay, a misstep payment or a medical issue or a serious deadline or emergency repair, staying aware of the trade-off between every decision. So before I conclude, I just want to share with you. So this is, if you want to subscribe my YouTube channel, I reached 1,200,000 views recently. So you can stay tuned, because I'm posting here on a daily basis finance and AI and geopolitics events on a daily basis. So this is my YouTube channel. And then I will share with you something else, something that I developed yesterday for you, for all of you, for the benefit of everyone. So this UAE Wealth Guide, you will see it shortly. So this is a dashboard. I already submitted this to Google Chrome. Let me see if it's posted or not yet, because I'm a developer in Google for this thing. So you see it's published. Yes, I can share with you the link and you can safely download it. Okay, so just 1 second. UAE Wealth Guide. I will share with you the link so you can add it to Chrome anytime, even now. So let me share with you the link. Okay, so if you want to scan this QR code, this extension is safe because it's already acknowledged and approved by Google. So if you have Google Chrome, you can add it immediately. And we can start using it. So I will show you how you can use it for your daily life. Okay, so it's customized for the income earned in the UAE. So it will be extremely relevant for every one of us. And I will show you how it works. So let me see if I can minimize this one, because it's quite annoying, the bar. Anyway, so as you see here, I created different tabs here that are, the first one here on the right is the learning information. So you see I created here based on your profile. So you can select the profile based on your age. So it's for kids, for teenagers, for graduates, for postgraduate, for mature, for elderly. Okay, in my case, I will select mature. Unfortunately, I'm no longer very young. So if you see here, based on your mature plan, this is the expected income that you might get and how you are classified. So if you have an income, for example, between 25 to 45, it's a good income. If for 45 to 80,000 is a very good income, extremely good income, 80,000, and high net income above 150 on a monthly basis. This. Okay, so if you change, for example, let's change, for example, for graduates. I believe there are lots of graduates here. These are the ranges on how to be perceived by yourself. Of course, you are not comparing yourself with anyone else, but you see, you might see how you can feel your income is. Then you can scroll down and you can check many other basic information that I already disclosed somehow during the during this course today, and you can start learning finance here. So learning information based on the context of the UAE. Let's go here to the guide. Okay, so this is free. This is available to everyone. Okay, so if you check here, we are in March. We can set up, for example, the income for March, let's say 20,000. Okay, so 20,000 means, sorry, 20,000. Okay, it means that on a daily basis, you have on average a budget of 645 dirhams. You might not have calculated by yourself before. This will help you to calculate how much is the daily budget, okay? But the daily budget, if this is related to the work, it means you are working, you don't have time to spend a lot of money for leisure even. If you have a passive income generated by previous investment, let's say other 5,000 dirhams, you can increase other 200 dirhams per day, for example. You see the importance of start investing and creating passive income before. But then you can have other non-recurring. For example, you might have a lucky win, or you might receive a bonus from someone. You might have something like this. So let's say we don't have any of this, but you need to pay the rent. So let's say on a monthly basis, you might pay a rent of 5,000. We are very generous, okay? Then we can have bills for 3,000, okay? And then we can have subscription for 500 per month. You see, your budget is much less. Okay, then we can start building up our analysis. First of all, is telling us that 20,000 dirhams is a very good income already for someone which is in your age, for graduates, so it's very good. So I wish you can already achieve that kind of budget. And then we can confirm the initialization. So here you can start spending for the food, let's say 2,000. Let's say I want to spend today for 100 dirhams for the food. Then we can have, I don't know, non-essential things. I want to buy a gift for 50 dirhams. I want to invest in a course for, I don't know, 100 dirhams today. And I want to distribute. So I see, okay, so how much is left out of the total amount available today? Okay, compared also after deducting the monthly overhead, because this is net of the overhead that you already had. So the overheads are expenses that are fixed cost, independently if they are needed or not. Okay, subscription might be not needed. Okay, so then, do you want something for safety in the piggy bank, or you want to invest to compounding things? So I want something in the piggy bank. So let's say I want 20%. So 20%, let's increase to 30%. I will save around 100 dirhams. Finalize the thing and then save the output of today. So now you will see here, I made a composition of the income versus the outflow, where the income is coming mainly from the work. So it's a lot of working hours rather than the passive. So it's not very good. And also the composition based on the outflow, which is related to overhead for main part, then from lucky things or the business or other things. So we will see the composition. Then this will be also tracked here for this month, for the yearly income tracker. So we can also set up the income for April. That might be 30,000, might be a little bit more, might be 30,000. Okay, so we can track the income here on the bottom. Then we can go to accumulated wealth and assets. So the accumulated wealth and assets can be managed easily here because you can include inherited capital or received capital by luck or whatever. So you can have, I don't know, 100,000 dirhams for inherited capital. Then you might have the savings. Then you might have other things. So here, there is the target allocation matrix. So you see here, this is what you should aim to do during the month, okay, or on a daily basis. So here you should consider 35% of overheads, so food, rent, house, and so forth. So actually, rent, house, or cars, or whatever. Then you have the living, which is the food and clothes, for example. The safety, 5% at least 10% of wealth, and at least 15% of growth, maximum 50% of lifestyle. Of course, the more you want to push on the growth, the more you will have a better life later. If you want also, you can also do something else, because you can go to the analytics and you can print your report after starting recording all your measures here. So that will be quite interesting, because you can create a PDF of your report, you can save it, you can store it, and you can track, monitor all your performances every day. And it will give you a massive push into your specific expectations for the future life. Of course, if we want to follow the advice of John Maynard Keynes, that he was saying, in the long run, we will all be dead, we will all be dead. We will never start saving, but of course we will need to invest, and we can hope in a better future. Okay, so I will just give you once again, if you need the link to get access to this, you can explore this app. It's completely free, and it can be enabled through Chrome extension. As you see, if you go to this one, you can add it to Chrome. It will start appearing among the extension here. You can open here because it comes with this recognizable icon here, and you can start opening the dashboard. Everything will be stored only in your computer. I'm not gathering any data from you. Okay, so this is completely safe. Everything will be stored in your computer in a specific folder that is stored by Windows. Okay, so do you have any questions? Do you want to discuss anything that we discussed so far? So I can read here. So this is an excellent app. Thank you, Rania. Can I enter my debt and remaining balance? What do you mean with this question? You can unmute yourself. We can have a tough discussion on this, so we can discuss anything we talked about today. So Maggie was asking, why does inflation happens? It's very simple, because as I was telling at the beginning, the government do not want people to save money. They want people to invest. And if the central bank is allowing the money to be stable, everyone will prefer to keep the money in the bank account rather than investing. So the central bank is printing money at a reasonable rate that will push the inflation to around 2%. If the inflation is too high, they will start printing money and they will start increasing the interest rates. If the inflation is too low, they will start printing money, so everyone needs to have a push to make investment, to work, rather than sitting on their own money. I hope I explained this enough clearly. If you have any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and do whatever you want. Okay, so you cannot unmute, so you want to ask a question. So how can we get the slides? So I will share again with you the initial link. So let me share with you the link at the beginning. So this is the registration form. If you fill this registration form, I will be able to issue a certificate through my wife company, which is Animus Nutus, and then you will receive a soft copy of the certificate, and I will also gather your emails. I will send to you all the slides. I will send you additional material and also the link once again of this Chrome extension. So once again, I will share with you the Chrome extension if you need. extension developer. As you see, it's approved, okay, it's published, okay. So sometimes Google reject application. So in this case, it means it's completely safe. Everything will be stored in your computer. So we'll click on this one, and I can share this link again. So I will copy. I will paste it here also in the chat, and I will share it as a QR code for those who prefer. So let me go here. I need to close this one. You see, as you see, I created many Chrome extensions, including this one, which is quite handy because I can create seamlessly QR code here. You can find all this QR code in my websites, in our website from Animus Nutus. I will share with you that link as well. And I will also share with you all my links with my landing page where you can find all my books, my references, the WhatsApp number, emails, and everything. So this is the QR code for this app, which is completely free and safe because it's approved by Google, and it's also whatever you type there, it will be stored only in your computer. So this is my landing page. Okay, so as you see here, you can find my WhatsApp, my LinkedIn, my Gmail. These are all my publications divided by specific clusters, financial, accounting, fintech, AI, fraud examination, and everything. I will share with you this link so you can stay in touch anytime. Do you have any more questions? I just left all this last 30 minutes, 15 minutes, just in case you have questions, because I believe and I hope you will have a meaningful question that I can answer.
Yes, I have one question.
Sure.
Yes, my name is Ziad. Thank you for your session, first of all. Second, and for Dr. Rani as well. Secondly, I want to ask you, the investors, what is the percentage that they decide that this business is lucrative, okay, and they will continue in investing? Sometimes businesses, you will make 30%. Oh, it's a big number. But when you come to expenses, it's very high. They will pay around 28%, 29% out of the 30%. So usually, what is the percentage that we can say that this one, okay, it's a good business, I will continue investing in this business? 5%, 10%?
Okay.
This is my question.
Okay, thank you for your question. I can feel that still I did not explain the things extremely clearly, because we have to do it step by step. Okay, so you are asking for a percentage. So percentage depends on every single factor that I'm going to list here. If you want, I can open an Excel sheet and we can try to build it together, because I want to be extremely clear and this can be helpful for everyone. So you want to calculate for a business or for an income, for whatever you have. So, but to have it here, I will go back to my accounting skills. Originally, I started teaching accounting. I was an accountant myself, a chartered accountant, auditor, and so forth. So I have this heritage that can help a lot and can help a young generation and also old generations. First of all, you need to create the income, okay? The income can be generated by, as we say, by work, okay, which is the worst actually, because you need to work and spend a lot of time, from investments and so forth. Okay, so if it's come from a company, it is called a revenue, okay, which is the price which is paid by the customers, okay, price paid by customers, the revenue for companies. Then you need to start deducting all the expenses. So expenses, what are the expenses? This is very, very difficult to be understood, because expense comes, I didn't call it cost. Okay, so let me start from scratch. Okay, so what is a cost? A cost might be, and this might be surprising, an asset or an expense. You might say, oh, why you're calling an asset a cost? Yes, an asset is a cost because you have a cash outflow to purchase it. So you need to purchase it. So both assets and expenses, they determine a cash outflow. You need to pay to make the acquisition of an asset and an expense. But the expense will be used only once. The asset will be used many times. It doesn't mean that the assets will deplete or will depreciate always. There are some assets that do not depreciate, some assets that they depreciate, they lose value over time. So some assets sooner or later might become expense, and this is called depreciation. So you have here, and you have fixed costs that usually derive from recurring expenses or depreciation of assets. For example, you might invest in a building, okay? So you might buy a building, an entire building. The maintenance, the service charges are part of the depreciation as well, because you need to maintain this asset. In addition to this, you have recurring expenses such as the bills or other things. Then you have variable costs. These variable costs are related to the, again, other things that they might relate to more or less consumption. So the more you consume, the more you think. So in this case, this is where you have the bills actually. Bills or raw materials and so forth. Then you were asking me what is the percentage to make sure that the income that you generate, the net income is good. So here we called income the revenue actually. But this is not income. This is called the revenue itself. Okay, so then we have the gross income here. Okay, so the income, let's say okay, so let's call it income. Let's not confuse anyone. The gross income means before paying taxes. Okay, then you need to pay taxes, income taxes, and you have the net income. Okay, so this is called net income. Now, you want to calculate your return, right? So I will give you something surprising, especially for those that are in real estate. You might have heard about ROI, return on investment, and so forth. Okay, so the return on investment or return on equity, ROE. To make the difference between return on investment and return on equity, you need to add another component here, which is the cost of the borrowing, which is the interest expense, and eventually also the inflation, okay? So return on investment is the return given by the investment as a whole. So you buy the building, you might buy entirely with your own saving, or you might buy in part with the borrowing and in part with your own money. So let's make this simple math here. So I will make it here again. Okay, so let's put it here. And we make two cases. In one case, I will put it down here. Okay, in one case, I have only equity. So it means your own savings. Okay, in the other case, you also have debt. You borrow money. Okay, so let's say the money which is needed is the asset itself. Investment. Okay, so the investment might be 1,000. In the first case, in case A, you invest everything with your own money. So you have zero debt, right? Okay, so let's assume that the income generated is the rent itself. In this case, the rent might be, I will call it here, rent. The rent might be, I don't know, 500, or let's say 200. Then the fixed cost for the service charges might be 20. Variable cost for little maintenance might be 5. So the gross income will be this minus this, minus this. 175, okay? Then you have zero interest expenses because you have zero debt. Eventually, if you are in a country in which you have to pay taxes, you might pay, I don't know, equals this one times 20%. So eventually your net income will be equals this minus this minus this. So this is your net income, right? Okay, so let's take another case. We have case B, in which we don't have enough equity. Eventually, we have only a down payment of 200, and we borrow money for 800. Okay? The rent at which you can rent that same asset is the same, because you cannot say the potential tenant, oh, I have a mortgage, you need to pay more. So the tenant will pay exactly the same. The expenses will be the same, and the gross income will be the same. However, here starts changing the matter, because out of this 800, you need to pay interest. So you need to pay interest rates or profit rate if you have any JARA. Interest rate, let's say, we can put it 5%. We are very generous again. So 5% out of what? You have 800 times 5%. So it will be 40. Income taxes, you will pay the taxes not of 175, but you will pay income taxes of 175 minus the taxes paid, because it's a deductive one. So times 20%. Okay, so sorry, times 0.2. The net income will be, in this case, equals 175 minus 40 minus this one. If I'm asking you now, which one of the two is earning more, A or B? I will ask you a question. Can you please answer me this question? A or B? The one that borrowed money or the one that didn't borrow the money? Which one earned more?
For sure, the 140. For me, I would say 140, 140 on the left side.
140. Unfortunately, it's wrong. Unfortunately, it's wrong. I will calculate why, and I will explain you why. As I say, return on investment means the total gross income, because this is the income which is generated by the asset itself, regardless if you borrow the money or not, divided the value of the asset itself. Okay, so the return on income, which is the ROI that all the real estate agents are selling you, it's in this case 18%, which is brilliant. Okay, I wish a property could earn much such these amounts. It is usually maximum 8%. The return on equity is the return you have from your own money. Let's see who is earning more. In this case, what is your net return? Is 140, right? Because you receive the net income after paying the taxes, after paying the rent, after paying the expenses, after paying interest, everything. So the net income out of what? Out of the amount you put in that investment, which is 1,000. Let's see who is earning more. In this case, this person, it is true that earn in absolute value 108, but this person invested 200, did not invest 1,000. So how much is the return for this person? 54%. So the borrowing in this case is called leverage. So the borrowing is good. Why? Because the interest rate charged on the borrowing is 5%, but the return offered by the rent is 18%. So it earns not only from his own money, but also from the difference between 18% and 5% on the remaining 800 that the person borrowed from the bank. So it borrowed 800 at 5%, but it invested this 800 at 18%. So the difference is his own profit without owning the money. So it's an infinite loop. If they had changed this percentage, let's say if they could have allowed 10% only down payments, so let's put 100 and 900, look at here, the return could have been 100%, even more. Okay, so that's why whenever you are borrowing money for something productive, you need to make sure that the return is lower than this. But let me go to your question, because you asked me a specific question. What is the return that you need to have? I had to make this clarification first because you just mix a little bit the words that you were using. First of all, you need to make not confusion between asset and expense. They're both cost. Why? Because they are generating cash outflow. Okay, so in accounting, cost is
what I
both
was
an
trying to
asset
tell
and an
you
expense.
is,
Yes. Hello? Okay, so another thing is that the percentage you need, it depends on your willingness to risk and your willingness to earn more money and the opportunities that are in the market. They do not depend on a fixed percentage. Of course, if you do not earn from a company after paying everything as a shareholder at least 20%, it depends on you. Okay, but everything depends on how much you're risking. So usually the return on equity for future investment, because this is after you already calculated your return. But the equivalent of the return on equity in finance is called cost of equity. And you want to know what is your cost of equity based on your perception, based on your risk. It depends on many factors. This is usually calculated, and I will encourage you, but I will become more technical now. It is based on the CAPM, Capital Asset Pricing Model. So if you measure the performances achieved in the past, this is called return on equity. If it's related to the future expected and you want to know how much should be the markup you need to charge if you want to have a profitable return, this is called cost of equity, which is related to different assumption on the risk. So basically here you are measuring the risk. Because, of course, we say there is the trade-off between risk and return. You want to earn more, you need to face more risk. There is nothing else that you can do. So you want to know how to measure the risk, you need to know the risk-free rate. You want to know what is the risk-free rate? Okay, so at the moment, the risk-free rate is this one. If you type risk-free rate Fred 3 months, is this one. The risk-free rate is 3.60. So it means that if you invest in the treasury bonds of the United States that are basically virtually, I'm not sure, risk-free, you can get already 3.6%. So why investing in a company that is giving you 3.6% when you can get a hassle-free investment, which is giving you regularly 3.6% at the moment? So this is the first component. Then the beta, which is a multiplier that depends on the industry. You want to see the beta, I usually get it from here. Damodaran, this New York University professor. Okay, if you type Damodaran in internet, you will land in his page. You can go to his datasets. There is a free dataset that you can get access to, and you can find the betas. Current data, you can go to current data, and you will see there are the betas somewhere. Total beta by industry. Okay, so the beta is this. So in which industry you are operating, for example? Can you tell me the industry you are operating? So we can calculate it. Automotive. Okay, so automotive. So auto and truck, 1.31. Okay, I will put it 1.31. Okay, so this is the beta. Then we have the market risk premium. You are operating in the UAE, so we need to check the market risk premium always from this website. And of course, it was calculated at the beginning of the year. It might have changed due to the war, but still we can apply that one. So we go to risk premium for other markets here. We can see the equity risk premium is here. We can go, for example, Abu Dhabi or UAE is the same, so 4.87%. Then we can have other risks. For example, there is now an additional risk due to the war or the instability, political instability. We can have, I don't know, another 5% we can have now. it was not existing before. We can also add other risk of default risk. So 0.42. 0.42%, and this was the default risk. Okay, now let's calculate our cost of equity. The formula is this: risk-free plus the beta that multiplies the market risk premium plus the other two components that we identified now. So basically, here you want to have something which is reflecting at least the return that you should achieve. You should achieve at least 15%. So the figure is good. So your return of the company is the net return, of course, not the gross, because you need to pay the taxes, you need to pay the expenses, the interest, the borrowed money, and so forth. So the net income you should at least return is 15% due to the risk you are facing. So you see, we matched the return with the risk you are facing. But let's say you want to move your company into a different industry or a different market. Let's say we want to move the company in Angola. Okay, so let's say Angola. I pick up one. Okay, so Angola is 12.64. So we need to replace this one. Instead of 4.87, it will be 12.64. So in Angola, a return of 20% is no longer acceptable. Okay, you need at least 30%, let's see. You want to have the same company, let's say in Nigeria. Let me find Nigeria. Okay, so Nigeria here, 12.6, sorry?
It's boring, man. I like something.
Okay, so we can take it in Romania, 7.08. In this case, in Romania,
It's words different.
No, you will listen.
No,
That
that's
guy, I don't feel like listening.
You need to ask any
I
question.
feel like listening. I don't listen.
the problem with you.
Okay.
I have after inquiries.
Okay, I can read here some questions. So can you please briefly explain short-term and long-term investment options available in Dubai? So short-term and long-term investment, it depends if you want in real assets or in financial assets. Short-term investment, you can even go to your bank and they can offer you term deposits. Okay, so there are 1 month, 3 months that they are very short-term. If you want long-term investment, you can, it depends on your risk perspective. Usually they are some other things, okay? So how should individuals optimize capital allocation to achieve sustainable risk-adjusted return while mitigating behavioral biases? You need to study yourself. You need to study everything. So do you expect hyperinflation due to after the regional conflict? I would say yes. For the same reason here that we have the risk-free rate that I showed you before. I will just leave you with this. It will focus on the last, sorry, not this one. I need to show you this. I will show you the map of a parallel of the things we had before. So this was the gray areas are the financial crisis. This was the crisis of 2008. This is where we are here. It's having the same behavior. We might expect an increase of interest rates to curb the inflation, but in the same time, the banks are printing money. So yes, indeed, I'm expecting hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation will happen. Was there hyperinflation after 2022? 2020?
It was because, of course, they printed. You want to see how much money was printed? If you type printed money, Federal Reserve, so they discontinue this one because they didn't want to show how much money they printed recently. This is how much money is being printed. Okay, so that's why, of course, we are having inflation.